I was watching a anime the other day, which is about this girl who is a vampire, and one of the interesting things about it was that she was not scared of the sun because the sun didn't actually damage her. I think the anime said that the sun only really tans her skin. But anyways, that got me thinking: what if vampires were actually real? Like, what if they actually existed in real life? How would that look like? What would it look like? How would they try to survive? And how would they, I guess, integrate themselves into human society? Well, that's pretty much the question that I'm going to be trying to answer today. Okay, so let's start out by thinking about what constitutes a vampire because I feel like, there's a lot of different definitions that people like to use because it's like a very old folk tale. So you can kind of add whatever extra property you want on top of it as well. But the main ones that I'm going to be dealing with is that vampires are scared of the sun because if they go into the sun, they die. They can bite into humans, and doing that will turn them into vampires. They're immortal as well, so they never die. They can transform into bats. They drink only blood, so they don't need to eat. I don't know if drinking blood is like mandatory, like without them they will die. I don't think it is mandatory, but definitely drinking only blood is like a core part of them because they have a insatiable hunger towards blood. And lastly, I don't even know if this is actually part of the original vampire like lore or whatever, but they have superhuman strength, speed, and pretty much a lot of these abilities. They're just superhuman. Okay, so the next question is, how would they integrate into human society? Would they kill all of us humans off to basically reign supreme as the best, as pretty much the apex species, or would they live in seclusion, try to live alongside humans so they don't get found out? Well, okay, well, this would actually depend on the scenario, right? So for the scenario that I'm building, let's say that the vampires basically just come into existence, right? So and when that happens, they pretty much just come into existence alongside our current time. So whatever the population is, whatever inventions have been invented, all this stuff, right? And they just pop into existence. And let's say that there's only 1,000 of them, and they are spread across America. Let's say they are spread across America like as a group though, right? So they're not randomly distributed across America because that wouldn't really help them all, at all. Okay, so then the question is, what would actually happen next? Well, first of all, the vampires would want to actually maximize their likelihood of living, right? They want to maximize their life, right? But them living in a human world would kind of make this difficult, right? Because you kind of have this standstill where the vampires come into existence, but humans don't know that they exist, right? And there's 1,000 of them. So what they choose to do next would be like a decision that they have to make depending on how they can best maximize their own lifespan so they can live forever pretty much because they're immortal, right? So okay, so because of this, right, I think that we in one of three scenarios, I think there's three ways that this can go. Firstly, that the vampires choose to be like, okay, these humans might kill us if they discover that we're real. Although to be honest, in this scenario, we kind of also assume that the vampires know about humans as well. Actually, never mind. I take that back because if vampires know that they can bite into humans to turn them into vampires, they should know about humans existing. I guess they wouldn't know about how many humans they do exist, right? But let's just say that to make this simple, let's say that they do know there's 8 billion humans in the world, and they somehow magically also know all this information as well. So in scenario one, the vampires would think that humans are dangerous because they might kill them, right? So they would want to kill all humans on Earth, right? So they can, I guess either kill or convert everyone to vampires so they can be the ultimate species. In the second scenario, they would try to live in seclusion, so just hide for as long as possible. And I guess you can also have a third scenario where they pretty much try to live with humans, so they pretty much just coexist, right? Okay, so let's talk about the first scenario first. Now, in order for them to actually maximize the lifespan, right, they want to increase the population, right? They want to increase the population. But if you actually think about it, this is actually really hard for them to do Because if you actually look into the properties, right, you have that first of all they bite into humans, and they can if they do that they can turn humans into vampires, right? And they also have a property which says they're immortal, so I guess they can live forever. So in like one generation of humans, where a human basically is birthed, they have children and they die, in that same cycle the same vampire would be alive, and then at the end of that cycle he would still be alive because they're immortal pretty much. But there's actually another property of vampires which I haven't talked about, and that is that they cannot have children, as in like they can't reproduce. So basically, if you were to, I guess, look at the population, right, in order for them to increase their own population, they would need to do that by biting into humans, thereby stealing from the human population to increase their own, right? So basically, just imagine whatever the human population is, right? It's around 8 billion right now, I'm pretty sure. You basically subtract from that and add it onto the vampire population. And another way of how this could work is that as the population of vampires starts to explode, right, it should increase exponentially, right, because there's more vampires to bite other humans. Now, this exponential thing that I talked about is a little bit unrealistic, because if vampires were doing that, that would mean that vampires are kind of just out there in the land, just finding humans, and then the first one they see they just convert them to a vampire. Which, if they were doing that, then humans obviously know that they exist, and if they know that they exist, then they're gonna try to kill them. So that is probably not good for them to do. So they wouldn't really try to increase the population by doing that, by having a strong surge of increase. They would try to do it slowly. But even if they do that, that still wouldn't really work out in the favor, because if your main means of increasing your own population is just by stealing from the human population, then you're gonna get found out, because there'll be like a lot of missing people all around the globe, and so there'll be a lot of missing people cases happening. Now, the reason they would do this is because they want to bolster their own population, so they have a better chance to fight back. But on top of that, right, this kind of wouldn't really work, because on top of the fact that they would get discovered before they can bolster their population to a high enough number, another reason that it wouldn't really work is because vampires, I'm pretty sure, are just like humans who have extra properties. That's kind of how I think about it, where they kind of just like humans with extra properties. So they're really strong. They drink blood and transform into bats and all this stuff. But it's not like they think in any different ways than other humans, right? It's not they have. There's no like such thing as vampire hobbies, right? But they're like really intelligent, because I guess if you think about them as being like humans with extra properties, then they're pretty much just like humans who are like super intelligent, I guess you could say, or like pretty much intelligent. So there would be a subset of vampires who, after they get infected, they'd be like, I don't want to be part of this campaign to increase of numbers. So they would kind of just go on and do their own thing, and that wouldn't be good, because there'd be inner conflict happening within the vampire groups, being like, no, we want to infect other humans to make them into vampires, and the other ones would be they don't really care about doing that, and that is not good if you want to bolster your own population just so you can have a chance to fight back against humans and I guess kill them all, or I guess infect them all, depending on whatever your goal actually is. Because again, you're doing this because you want to maximize your own lifespan, right? Now, you might think that this is the fault of this scenario, because in this scenario, I only said there's 1,000 vampires, and obviously, they don't even have enough of a chance to actually increase the number before they get discovered, right? So, what if you were to say that there was like 500,000 or like a million vampires to start, right? And they had basically to infect whatever country or the entire world, enough so that in the end they could win the fight against humans and come out on top. Now, the thing is, even that would not really work. And the reason I say this is because that would kind of just make things worse. What you can do is, right, you can kind of create a graph which would show like the population of the vampires, right? And then on the Y, you can show what's the likelihood of them getting discovered at this point, right? Whatever the population is. Plus, if they get discovered at this point, what is the likelihood of them actually winning the fight? And this graph would look something like this. So it would kind of dip down and then go up. And the reason it looks like this is because at the first point where I said 1,000, right, the point is here, and what it's basically saying is that in this case, the chance that humans discover 1,000 vampires, the Y value, whatever, is pretty high, because they have a pretty low chance of being discovered. But if they do get discovered, then they can die pretty easily. But as you increase this population, the chance of them being discovered rises more than the chance of them putting up a fight does, right? So that's why it dips. But if you increase the population more and more, at a certain point, I don't know what that point would be, if you're discovered at the population, you could probably have a fighting chance. Like if there was a billion vampires to start with, right? That was a scenario. Then who really cares if they were discovered? Like I'm pretty sure a billion vampires might have a pretty good chance at killing all the humans. Now, I'm ignoring like a lot of stuff like nukes and all that stuff. So obviously, I'm not saying that a billion is enough, but hopefully you understand the point that I'm trying to make. That at a certain point of population, the humans wouldn't really stand a chance, and that in this scenario, the reason this would fail is because the act of increasing your population makes you more likely to be found out. Okay, that was a lot, but hopefully you understood that point. So basically, if I had to, I guess, rate it, I would say they don't have a strong chance because this is an uphill battle for them. Okay, so let's talk about the second scenario next. And that would be, what if they just chose to live their life without bothering humans and trying to make sure that they don't get found? Honestly, this is actually not that hard for them to do because they can turn into bats. So I think they could have a pretty good chance of making this work. The only things that I guess you could point to is that they have a drink only they have a drink only blood weakness, which means that maybe you could say that this weakness is so strong, like they have an insatiable hunger towards blood, that they want to go out of the way um, to drink human blood, and this urge is so strong that they will go berserk for it or something, right? I think if that is how far you are taking this weakness or this property, then I think yes, 100% sure you don't really stand a chance. But if this is like a urge that you can manage, then I think they should definitely try to manage it. But yeah, I think they have a pretty good shot. I don't know how long they will survive for. That would have to depend on humanity as well. But yeah, I think they have a pretty good chance. Okay, so let's talk about the third scenario, and that is that what if they just chose to just live along humans? Now, the reason I think that this is actually a plausible scenario, and the reason I'm actually talking about this at all is because vampires are intelligent. They're like humans that have extra properties, right? And I guess you could say that maybe the personality changes a little bit, so they identify with being a vampire and all that stuff. But it's not like they are dumb, right? They're not gonna do anything that is wrong. Like they would definitely be at least as smart as humans, right? I would definitely think that. So because of that, and because they're not monsters, right? That is kind of just how stories would portray them out to be. There's definitely a strong chance that if like the vampire just came into the open and said, "Hey, we exist. Can we live along with you guys? And we promise not to do anything um, too egregious," right? I think they have a good shot of surviving. I don't know what the relationship will look like, but because they're not trying to kill humans, right? Um, I think that it could work out. And honestly, I think out of all the scenarios I mentioned, I think this is the best. This is the one which has the most chance of succeeding, because you are kind of human-like. Not in terms of like you look like a human, but like you are like intelligent, right? You're not like a not intelligent creature. I guess you could also talk about morals and ethics and all this stuff as well. I don't really know how that would apply to this, but maybe you can, I guess, let me know in the comments. But yeah, I think that this is probably the best scenario in terms of maximizing their lifespan, and I think this is the one they should actually try to employ if they want to live. Yeah, okay, that's the entire video. Let me know what you guys think as well, and we'll catch you guys in the next one.